Hey, how's everybody doing? Um, you may feel different, and if you don't want to check this one out, I completely understand. I really do. I don't consider this politics. I think people are making politics of it. Oh, I'm not gonna go up there. I started building, and I don't know if it's gonna work or not. I don't know if because they just had an update today. That's why I'm on a little bit later. Um, but that's the kill chamber. I think I got it built right. I'll know when I build it. The beauty of it is, if it does screw up, some of them are they're either gonna fall in there in the fenced in area, or they're gonna fall into the water. And I was gonna go up and show you something, and then I forgot. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over. I gotta get some emeralds because I need to fucking build this up too. I think I just made this yesterday. It was this one maybe I didn't do yesterday. I did yesterday. I had to redo the helmet, the pants, and the feet because they were. I got shot up. I got shot up so much and fell trying to build. My armor was pretty trash. I don't think I got around to fixing this one. But I'm gonna go get some gems. I'll probably do this off stream. I want to try and make this kind of a short but sweet stream. Um, uh, the whole Israeli thing, and I gotta be honest with you. I I don't want to come off as like some gung ho supporter of Israel. I'm not. Uh, I I think if you want to break it down, I think the reason why I kind of support Israel is I kind of root for underdogs. I really do. Um, and the thing with the Israel thing, I think people need to understand that. Oh, and I got some work done here on the. If you look at the crosshairs, I started terraforming this side of it. I was doing that. I really wasn't feeling good, and I figured this would be relatively safe. But I started thermoforming that, so I've gotten not quite completely around the thing, but I want to start putting because I've been trying to do my villagers, and I desperately need by the time I get the that raid farm done, I'm gonna need some mending books. So I will hopefully be able to do another fishing stream this weekend. Hopefully I can get one, and I am working on getting it where I can put my villagers over here on this side, or I might do it on the front. Uh, I'll get back to Israel in a minute. I just um, right here I've got some villagers right at the top, and you might have already seen those, or at least the outline for them. But they're going to be like the toolsmiths. The over here on this side, I might put the librarians. I'm not sure. I might put them on the front. It's kind of a work in progress. It's one of those things where I really don't. Uh, and it's shit. I realize there's a lot better Minecrafters than me. I totally get that. Absolutely, totally get that. But I don't really start out with a vision. Like this is starting to shape out, where these guys will be partially under that, and I'll have a roof come out. But these guys, I started shaping this, and then what's going to happen is I'm going to try and do this where there's a wall, so I can limit access. The mobs can't just come up and go right in. But this will be where my toolsmiths and weaponsmiths and the armor guys will be here. Like tools are at the top, weapons will probably be here, and then armor will probably be down on this one. Is my guess. And anyways, back to Israel. There's a lot of. I gotta be honest. I'm trying to be nice. I'm honestly trying to be nice. I'm probably gonna fail, but I'm honestly trying to be nice. Um, if you're people on the right or the far right, you're probably not going to gravitate to what I'm. You're not going to be picking up what I'm laying down, anyways. To me, at this point, I firmly believe that anybody that can be reached with the truth is no longer Republican. They're no longer on the right. I firmly, and if I'm wrong, I apologize, but I just don't think I'm wrong on that. If you're still supporting the Republicans at this point, you're kind of like the Palestinians supporting Hamas, in my opinion. But when you look at Israel, I've seen people do this where they sit there and go, oh my God, that land was taken from the Palestinians in 1948 or 1958 and blah, 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 blah. And they should just give that back to the Palestinians. Death to the... I shit you not, there was a video I saw today. If the guy wasn't lying, he said that in his area, I don't know what state, don't know what city, but you had women in makeup protesting Israel, holding up Taliban signs. I honestly cannot find a way to be nice on that. That is as you are as dumb at that point as people who think vaccines didn't wipe out polio. And I've actually met people like that. They think polio was never wiped out and cured by a vaccine, that we just call it the flu now. And I'm sorry, if you are that fucking dumb, nobody can help you. If you're that fucking dumb, you probably should not be out walking around by yourself. And I mean that sincerely. I don't mean these people well, but you should be in a facility where people are wiping your ass, giving you meds, and taking care of you, because that's just a level of stupidity you should not have to be walking around. But these people... And again, I'm not entirely sure that this is 100% the case, and you might not be aware of this, or maybe you're not from America, you definitely don't know it, but there are Mexican groups in the U.S., and I'm not trying to be mean, I just want to give you I don't mean anything by it, I really don't, not this part of it. They would be like, and I might be wrong, but it's at least in the ballpark. They would be like the Mexican versions of the Black Panthers. They're like Mexicans for Mexicans, and there's nothing wrong with that. They're, God, it's been a while since I read it, and I can't really tell you all that much about it. But one of my martial art instructors, he actually wrote a book about the... because it's kind of entwined with the Filipino martial arts, which is one of the things he teaches along with other things. But he wrote this book on the Filipino lodges, I think out in California. They were like union halls. They were like a cross between a union hall and an Elks Club for Filipinos. And it was there for their labor movement to organize and try and get better rights for the Filipino workers in America when they came over here. Well, anyways, these groups, and I don't mean any disrespect for it, but they're kind of like some of these African American groups where they want to get like reparations for slavery, and these Mexican groups want to give back land to Mexico. And they really don't want to go to Mexico. They want it. They're a little bit like the groups of Moroccans who think that technically the U.S. is legally Morocco and they're royalty and they have a right to steal your fucking home and kick you out of the... I'm not kidding you. They're part of the sovereign citizen movement. I am not making this up. They're just probably, if you don't know about them, you've either never run across them, never seen them on the news, watch a little bit of news, and or you live in an area where they haven't really gravitated to. Like, I don't think you'll find them in Alaska. They're usually in the warmer climates to live in, and they and I think it fits in with the reparations crowd. Because they're basically clamoring, crying, and protesting for things that are just never going to happen. And I think there is at least in some cases, maybe not 100%, but when you look at these people wanting us to give the land back to Mexico, maybe not 100%, but I would say in a large portion of it, you can only say that we should be giving this land back to Mexico if you only go back to when the Mexicans stole it from the Indians. Because if you go further back, it actually belongs to the Indians, the Mayans, the Aztecs. It doesn't belong to Mexico. You know, it might be the same people, but it's not the same country. It's like Russia clamoring for Ukraine, saying, "Well, it used to be." They're like Saddam Hussein, you know, wanting to get Ukraine back, and you know they want the branch to come back. Well, they claim, "Well, it's ours." No, it isn't. It was the Soviet Union's, and that doesn't exist anymore. It's the same people, but the Soviet Union dissolved itself because their corrupt government didn't work. They were going bankrupt. And there was something I was reading, and don't ask me, I can't remember the details. I'm having a fairly good day, but there's just some stuff I'm having trouble remembering. But if I remember right, and maybe I'm not, but there was something I was reading, and they were saying that Reagan, with his arms race, actually kept Russia going longer. Russia would have likely collapsed a lot sooner if it hadn't have been for Reagan's arms race. Because you guys might not be aware of this, but if you go back to the Great Depression and World War II, when we actually went to war and we spent money on war production, that boosted our economy and helped us get out of the recession faster. And it was the same way with Russia. By forcing them to spend money on their military, it was a jobs program. It was an economy booster because of the money they were pumping into the economy. So they lasted longer. Just like when we have wars going on, you see your companies making more money because the military's buying stuff. Other people are buying stuff. You know, the people that go to work that are now replaced by people that didn't have a job or didn't have a good job. It boosts the economy because you got the military paying activated soldiers, and you've got the people that now have that activate soldiers. So there's all this extra money in the economy. The reason you didn't really see it when we went to war in Iraq was because of that privatization of the military. These people were getting their money and they were basically spending it overseas. A lot of the money that was being spent on that war did not end up in the U.S. economy, and a lot of it ended up in Blackwater's pocket. A lot of it happened in these private companies that were shipping that money overseas or squirreling it away. You didn't see the boost to the economy that normally you would have, you know, back before the Republicans started to privatize stuff. These are not things you can negotiate. These are not opinions. These are not theories. It's basically the facts of it. And you know, but that's the basics of it. It's like, you know, you can't just say, oh, we have to give. And the thing with the African Americans, and I really feel bad for what happened, but the only thing we have to compare to their calls for reparations would be like the Japanese internment victims of World War II, and the only ones who got money were living. They were living Japanese Americans who were interned. They were illegally locked up until the war got done. They didn't pay it to their families. They didn't, you know, they had to be alive and they had to be a victim of it. And so, like, by using that standard, and again, I don't want to get into right or wrong. And again, if I'm wrong, so be it. I don't really have a dog in the fight. But when you look at it, the only way you could expect slavery reparations to be paid out is if you found a living slave who had been a slave during the time of slavery. So if there was a time machine, maybe. But giving money to their great 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 grandkids, I think it's unrealistic. I think it's a pipe dream. I think it's conspiracy theories, you know, as vast as the ones coming out of the right. I just don't see it happening. Um, but I don't have a dog in the fight. You guys keep going if you actually find enough people that'll vote for it. I don't see it happening. I literally do not see that happening. And well, anyway, but that's what you got. You've got a lot of people, and some of them aren't. They aren't Palestinian, and some of them aren't even Muslims. Like I said, that one Patches, would you get out of there, please? Yeah. If you're checking the place out, great. I don't know what time it is. I don't know. It's 3:30. I'm gonna try and have my stream done by 4. Yeah, I'm trying to do a stream. As soon as I get done with the stream, I'll come feed you. Hey, you didn't eat your lunch. I don't feel that bad for you. Yeah, you didn't eat your lunch, so I don't feel that bad for you. No, I've gone out there twice now, and every time I go out there, you got plenty of food in your dish, so I don't feel bad. Um, well, anyways, the the but that's the thing. They want this land given back to the and I don't think it's going to happen. Well, the other thing you got is there is, and I don't honestly don't care if you call it anti-Semitism. I don't care what label you put on it. There's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of governments out there. People running various government. They don't really like the Jews. They don't like Israel. And there's a lot of people calling for. They're calling for people in Israel. Netanyahu's top of the list, and they want him put on trial for war crimes. And I want to say two things about that. I think there is some validity to that. I think if you have an open, honest, fair mind about it, you can honestly say that, yeah, the Israels probably did commit some war crimes. I think that's a rational view to have. Um, but here's the thing. I don't know that they can get a fair hearing because you look at what's going on, and you look at what's going on. They, there are Americans doing this. When the Muslims do it, I can completely understand that. You've got. I actually am kind of a fan of hers, but that I'm gonna and I apologize. I am gonna mispronounce her name probably. I am not doing it on purpose. I don't mean it as a sign of disrespect. I'm really not. I'm just really bad at names. It's all on me. Call it a lack of education. Call it a character. I don't care. It's probably true. But I'm not doing it on purpose. I'm actually a fan of hers. But she's if I'm not mistaken, she's Pakistani by birthright or ancestry. And that Justin Amash, I think the guy's name is, he's the Republican that got ran out of. He got ran out of the party because he voted for the first Trump impeachment. He's another one that's a little up in arms over this. And I don't really want to bash him. I don't want to say anything mean about him. But this is why some people can't serve on a jury because they can't be honest or objective. These guys are just a little too close. And I think there's a lot of people in the Democratic Party they just register a little too close with the Pakistanis who really have had a pretty shit shake of the luck can. But I think a lot of these people they would be, if you look at them, you look at the things they're saying, I think they would be like if there was a trial on war crimes, they would not be allowed to be jurors on it because I don't think they can be fair or objective. But I firmly believe that uh, if you had an honest trial for war crimes for Netanyahu and many Israelis, I think if it was honestly fair, I think one of two things would happen. And one of them would be that they would go to trial and they would just be not found guilty. And you could bring in all the factual evidence, and there's some of the stuff they've done that you could say, yeah, that's a war crime. It's horrible, and it might even be on par with what the Bush administration did. And I do firmly believe that at least Netanyahu and some of the other leaders of the Israeli party, they should be put on trial. Because we need to have Putin put on trial, and there's really no moral authority to call for Putin to be put on trial if we're not going to put, us as Americans, we can't put Putin on trial if we don't bring the Bush administration, 43, Bush Jr., George W. Bush. If we don't bring him and some of his people, and I don't even know if he would necessarily need to be, because I'm not sure how much he knew, but Rumsfeld, I think, is dead, so he kind of gets away with it. But Dick Cheney should maybe be brought to trial on that, and they should be brought to trial on that. And I think if they had a fair court, I honestly think they would be found guilty. I firmly believe that. And you piece of shit. I'm not seeing it. I don't know. This is something they got to work on. These guys here used to be able to go like this, and they'd go flying over those one high blocks. I have seen them break a lead on stuff that they should easily be dragged over, chess and whatnot. I'm calling that a glitch. Maybe it isn't, but I'm calling it a glitch. Because there's no too high blocks. There was nothing there that should have blocked those guys. They should have just sailed over it as I was dragging them over here to the execution chamber. Gollumschwitz. And let these guys get out of the way and pull him down. Because I don't see how we can tell the world that Putin has to come. I would like to have the moral authority so we can tell the world, the European countries, that we do not remove those sanctions on Russia until the Russians send him and everybody else that's guilty to The Hague for war crimes with enough evidence to convict them, so they're done. I firmly believe that's something that should be happening. And how can we do that if we're trying to keep Netanyahu from judgment, if we're trying to keep Bush? But unlike Russia, unlike the Bush administration, I don't think they would be able to get away with it. And maybe Netanyahu would, but I honestly feel that if he had a fair trial, what would happen was they would run it, and they would just find him not guilty. I firmly believe they would find him not guilty. Absolutely believe it, 100%, every day of the week, twice on Sunday. The only other fair option I would see is because you got to think like when we had Katrina and people were like looting stores for food and shit like that. That's clearly a crime. You're breaking into stores, you're taking food, medicine, and other things that you clearly don't own. You're taking them while the place is closed. That's a crime. And I hate to say this, but it's, again, trying to keep it real. They literally had a thing, and again, I don't call this politics. This is factual. They actually did stories. There was a story where white people broke in and stole shit. And the story, I mean, because they were showing it on the news. I think this might have been Chris Matthews, but I think it was Keith Olbermann back when they were still on MSNBC. And when it was white people that were looting, the articles were white victims of Hurricane Katrina found necessary food and other things for their survival. And you can see a picture of a white person breaking into a store. And then they go, yeah, here's what it looks like when it's on the other side. It was like the headline of the article was, looters rob and steal on a rampage during Hurricane Katrina, and it was a black family, and they were basically taking clothes and food. I don't know what to tell you, but it's wrong. But the white people, I think, is right. There was a hurricane. Yeah, maybe the government has to go in and help them rebuild, or the insurance companies or whatever. I don't know how that works out, but they should be able to do something. If they could bail those banks up, they should be able to bail out your local businesses that got impacted from Hurricane Katrina. But that was the thing. I don't even think those people were charged. Another thing. Now, this is a wrong example of it. Okay, I'm going to show you a wrong example of that. There was a case where a cop killed a black guy that was jaywalking. There was another one where a guy out in California, or I think this was New York, guy out in New York was accused of selling loose cigarettes to make some money and get away from the taxes on cigarettes. Tax evasion, that's a white-collar crime. That doesn't deserve a death sentence. They choked that guy till he died. And the other guy, he was basically jaywalking. Well, that's not something you should be shot for either. And the cop pulled him over, and he was on foot, but he pulled up to him. And it could have been one of those things where he was just doing his job. And it also could have been one of those things where he was a racist cop, and, everybody, including his mother, knew it, Well, anyways, he killed that kid. And the kid shouldn't have been dead. And what happened was, when that cop went to, he basically got indicted because there's so much public uproar for it. But when he got indicted, the grand jury was basically told that there was this 30-year-old law. There was this really old law that basically stated police had the right to use any force they deemed necessary to arrest somebody. And the only problem is that was a law that had been found unconstitutional by the United States Supreme Court like 30 years ago at that time. And they got busted on it. But what it is the prosecutors did that to get that cop off. And that's wrong, but they did. They put that in there, and then later they had to, because if it would have came out, they probably should have been disbarred for it anyways. They could have been sanctioned by the court, because that, if it wasn't criminal, it was damn close. And then they came into the grand jury and they go, hey, we gave you that law on cops using force. We just want you to fold that in half and forget about it. And they didn't, and then somebody raised their hand. Now, they should have done this without being asked, but somebody asked them. They go, well, if a law is struck down as unconstitutional by the Supreme Court, does that make it unconstitutional at the state level? And the correct response from those prosecutors, yes, it absolutely makes it unconstitutional. That law is not law anymore. It's illegal. We don't do it. We gave it to you because we're idiots. So this is the correct answer that should have been given. Instead, what was given is the cops go, we don't want to turn this into a law class. No, but how about we turn it into a fair prosecution for that dead kid's murderer? How about it? And that cop, because those prosecutors did shit, they got away with it. He got away with murdering that kid. He absolutely, and then the police chief was the same way. He was asked during an interview, and he goes, well, there was surveillance of somebody that had stolen something or whatever, and he fits the description. It really looks like him in the thing. And they're like, well, were the cops aware of that? And it's like, then he kind of ended up, no, they weren't aware of it. We didn't know at that time. And so they were just doing everything they could. It was like when I was down in Indiana, that one cop, he was off duty, but he had a squad car that he could take home. And I got a feeling he used it all the time like it was his own personal vehicle. That right there should be a crime. But what he did is he would get drunk, and he'd go driving around town in that police squad car when he was off duty. I mean, I'm not even saying, oh, he was drinking on the job. No, he was off duty, getting drunk, getting wasted, and he kept fucking driving through red lights and shit like that. Well, when he ran that guy over, I don't know if he ran over one person or if it was more than one, but he killed everybody he ran over with his vehicle. Just plowed into their vehicle drunk. And I got a drunk driving ticket, and I got to be honest with you, what had happened was, I think I was drugged, but I'm not entirely sure. But I was really out of it, and it didn't feel like being drunk. It really did not feel like being drunk. I'd been drunk a lot. It felt more like when I was in the hospital being given medication for surgery or something. Ooh. And that was not done on purpose. But, oh, I gotta turn this back down. But, I didn't run anybody over. I didn't damage it. It wasn't like this guy at work that I think they hired at GM for management. It wasn't where I went driving around drunk and did damage to like a fucking $1 million worth of artwork or whatever at a park. I was drunk. Oh, I think I was drunk. I was drunk. I was actually drunk too, but that's not what disabled me, I don't think. And so I pulled over. I was actually worried, and I don't know if they got me right away or if I'd been asleep for a little bit. I pulled over on the side of the highway because I was in bad shape, and they got me. They got me dead to rights. They got the blood level and everything. And I'm not coming up, but the police union didn't come forward and go, oh my God, he's a good person. Goes home every month to visit his parents. There's none of this shit. But, oh my God, when that guy ran those people over, they weren't law and order like they were with me. I had to spend a couple weeks. I basically got the same punishment as a repeat. It was my first time. I got the same punishment as a repeat offender who wrecked his car when he got drunk that time. I had a judge that, from what I was told, when I was in the jail, the judge was a fucking drunk. The judge was wearing an ankle monitor. He couldn't drive. He was under home arrest when he was, I think, because they had the ankle monitor on him. And when he came into work, he had to blow in a breathalyzer. Every time he left and came back into the courtroom, he had to blow into a breathalyzer because he'd been given court case. He'd been given judgments while he was drunk, and and then this is what they had for justice down there. But no, and they ended up they got this. This didn't do me any good, but it came out a couple years later. They did this thing and they really harassed people that were out of state. And what they did was, I had to get an surety bond, or I had to wait until my court date. So I was in there all fucking weekend. I don't remember what day it was. But I got arrested, and I had to sit in there until my court date on Monday or Tuesday or something like that. And and fair enough, but it's like it later came out that practice of theirs of forcing people to get an surety bond, and like somebody I worked with, they found out where I was like, oh yeah, they go, that's a hellhole. I think it was Whitley or Whitney County or something like that. They go, they're a fucking hellhole of a bunch of religious nuts. They said if you'd have been in Allen County, you'd have probably been home that night. He goes, you might not have even had to bond out, or bond out to get out. But he said, yeah, where you were at there, and I ended up as quickly as I could. It was like I waited till my probation and shit was done, and when that was all done, I moved closer to work. I got out of that fucking place, and all them religious nuts could just do whatever they wanted. They weren't going to get my money anymore, and now but they didn't do any of that. But when that cop murdered people, not drove around, oh, I'm drunk, I'll pull over. which is what I did. Wasn't like that guy in court where, oh, he damaged his car, and he had to go to jail. When it was a cop who murdered people, got drunk and murdered people. Oh my God, we can't put him. It was like the Republican. Oh my God, we can't put this guy in jail. He's a Christian. He goes to church. He's got a family. Fuck him. Put him in jail. And so you got cases out on both sides. I could honestly see them treating Israel and everybody in it. And I could honestly see them treating them like the flood victims in Katrina. It's like, yes, they committed war crimes, and you could list them out and all that. The only ones I think they would have trouble with on the war crimes is the settlements and the ripping the Palestinians out of their land. I could see them maybe getting found guilty on that, but the actual physical war crimes where they're killing people, the bombing, even if it rises to the level of a war crime, I could honestly see a fair court. And if we're not 100%, 110% sure that they're going to get a fair court, we need to basically just block it, not allow it to happen. Because those people have suffered enough without throwing them to the wolves with a whole bunch of people that don't like fucking Jews. That's wrong. But I could honestly see them, jury coming back on, yeah, we find them not guilty. In the same way that you sometimes see, like if you got a father that murders the person that killed his kid or raped his daughter or raped his wife, oh my God, yeah, he killed that person, that's a crime, but we're just not going to find him guilty because of the circumstances. And I could see that. And the other thing that I could see is, and this is something that I've seen it before, but it kind of stuck with me when it was these sovereign citizens, these anti-government nuts that are in the United States. They'll do this thing where they just go out and harass people. And they try to go to rural areas where they don't have the legal expertise and all this. They don't have the ability to fight it. It costs too much. What they do is they go in there and they harass people until they get a government official to screw up. A cop, a clerk, anybody. Anybody that the government would have to pay for their fines and their settlements. And what they do is, a lot of times they get something. It's like, oh, they fucked up. We got it on tape. We're going to court. And they get what you would call a Pyrrhic victory, where the judge and the jury and the courts find the government guilty of what they did to these guys. And then the sovereign cits, they get like a $1 settlement. So I could see that where they find, I would hope, maybe we win it, because I don't think they would get a fair trial. I really don't. But I would really like to see where they would get, if they were found guilty, and they weren't excused for extenuating circumstances. Let's be honest, the Jews have been under a terrorist attack from whenever the 6-Day War was, at least. We're talking like 60, 70 years or something like that. And they've been under a terrorist attack. It's been like a nonstop barrage of 9/11s and January 6s and Columbine school shootings and all that. Can't remember the name of the city or state, but that federal bombing they had out there with Timothy McVeigh. They've been under that for decades. They've been having it's not like, oh my God, we had 9/11 and then 11 years later we had this, or 5 years later we had that. They're having like one a week, 3 a week, every other week. It comes in spurts. It isn't constant. It isn't every day. Sometimes it is every day. But they're getting these things, big attacks. Somebody said they've gotten so good at it. It was on the news. They've gotten so good at it. You'll go over there and there's a bombing at night. And then when you get up at 5, 6 in the morning and go out for your breakfast or your coffee, it's all fixed. Windows are replaced. Tables are replaced or repaired. He said the only indication you have that something happened is the flowers that are put out for the victims. And I could definitely see, even if they got hardcore like waterboarding and usually theirs are just military action. And I would say probably something like 70-80% of them, they're not even really war crimes. You've got people out there accusing Israel of crimes when it's just war. You want to be honest, all war is a crime. It's just some of it isn't charged. It's kind of like, you look at police, you know, police murder people. It's just legal murder. I'm sorry, but when a cop shoots somebody in the head because they're kidnapping or they're robbing a bank or whatever, that's still murder. It just happens to be legalized murder that's part of their job. Well, soldiers, it's the same way. Yeah, it might be a crime against humanity. It's just not a crime against the law. And that's the way it should be. But I would seriously hope of that. I really would. And the thing that just freaks me out are the people that are just irrationally calling for Israel this, and they want a ceasefire and all that. And somebody pointed it out that Israel had a ceasefire around the 6th or the 7th of October this year. They did. And I want to replace I need wood. Wood, morning wood. But no, they, I would really hope of that. But there's people out there that are like, oh, Israel did this. There was a news person, and I kind of reached out to him on Threads, and I go, look, you got to get your people better trained, because I tweeted her show directly. I go, look, you were talking about Israel, and I go, I think anybody that's going to be on the news should actually learn something before, if they're going to talk about Israel and the Middle East, they should really learn some things, or they should stay off that subject. Because I go, first of all, that land, if you go back far enough, was Jews. It was Jewish land. It wasn't Pakistan's. A lot of the Arab countries did not exist back then. They just didn't. And but that if you go back, oh yeah, in 1948 that land was Palestine's. Well, yeah, but if you go back 2,000 years, it was Jewish, and it was taken from them. And when that land was taken from the Jewish people, they didn't become terrorists and fuck up the country. They moved on. They left. They went somewhere. They tried to eke out a living. And what they found was that, they found out in World War II, and they weren't treated that good anyway, but in World War II, because it was kind of like that, I can't remember the other name. I think it goes by Black Wall Street or whatever. It's like that. They got over in Europe, and they were successful. Kind of like those black people that had that black in Tulsa, Oklahoma, or something like that. They were making a living. They were doing pretty good. Then they got murdered. They got wiped out. It was a successful genocide, unlike what Hitler did. Hitler tried. Hitler really tried. And then so afterwards, we led the way on it, I think. But there were good people in some of the other governments that are like, yeah, we can't let them be treated like this. This is just wrong. Even the people that didn't necessarily like the Jewish people, they're like, yeah, this is wrong. This shouldn't be happening. And so they did that. And the anti-Semitism, or whatever you want to call it, is still there. And the funny thing, well, it ain't really funny. It's kind of scary for me. You've got Jewish people. Jews for terrorists, they're basically calling on a ceasefire. Yeah, they had one. Israel had a ceasefire around the 6th or 7th of October this year, about a month ago. And with that ceasefire, Hamas raped women, killed civilians, babies were shot up, babies were burned. They burned people. After they raped the women, the ones that survived it were marched through the street with like blood stains from where they had been raped on their crotch to show everybody what happened. I'm sorry. If you're someone that can defend that, I don't think you're a good human being. I really don't think you're a good human being. And then Dan Gold, Representative Dan Gold something or other. He's New York. He was one of the lawyers that was working with the impeachment hearings, and then he ran for Congress in New York. It was seat open. He was on one of the shows, and he was one of the best ones that I first saw. There were other people. Morning Joe's been really good on this. Nicole Wallace has been good on this. Others, which surprises me. I mean, it never fails to amaze me because those people are Republican, or used to be. I think they left the party over Trump and some of the other shit. But those people, you know, I really didn't like their politics when they were in office with, you know, Scarborough was a representative out of Florida, and Nicole Wallace worked for George W. Bush. But since they've gone to the news, oh my God, I think they do a pretty good job covering. I really do. I was surprised, and Nicole Wallace is one of my favorite people to watch. Like, I got her on right now. She's one of my favorite people to watch. I like watching Morning Joe, and I started watching Morning Joe mostly because of Mika, because she's a liberal, she's a little progressive, and I think she's got a great mind for this stuff. But Joe Scarborough, when I first started watching, I really didn't like him that much, but as I watched, I'm like, you know, oh my God, he does a pretty fair job. I don't agree with him, but I don't agree with him all the time. I think he's wrong in his opinion. He probably thinks I'm wrong on mine, and he makes a lot more money than I do. But I don't think I've ever found him wrong on the facts unless he made a mistake, and I can live with that. But I do think he does a good job covering stuff. But on Threads today, there was a guy, and I don't know if he's on the left or he's on the right. I really don't know. But he seemed genuinely serious, and he's like, "Oh, Israel blew up a refugee camp to kill one leader," and I don't know that that's true, but he thinks it is. And he goes, and then a couple hours later, they blew it up again. Can somebody explain to me how this is not a war crime? Can somebody explain it to me like I'm a child? You know, he was just fucking going off. And I told him, and I had to do this to Joy Reid on MSNBC. I reached out to her, and I tagged her and MSNBC on it, and that's where I was talking about, where I said, well, you know, hey, if you guys are going to report on this, you should actually learn something about it. Because she was making a comment that when you bomb a hospital, that's a war crime, and there's just no way to get around that. Yeah, it is. And I told her, I go, look, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a military expert. I go, my understanding is that if you use civilians as a human shield, that becomes a valid target. It is not a war crime to blow that target up. And I go, it just doesn't. I go, it's not good. Nobody should be happy about it. But if you've got, and that's what I explained to this guy, I go, if you've got terrorists hiding inside civilians, I go, that then becomes a valid target. It does. I go, if you have terrorists using civilians as a human shield to protect military stuff, I go, that legally becomes a valid target. I go, they do this in cop movies. If you've watched enough cop movies, you'll eventually see one where they talk about, hey, sometimes you got to shoot the hostage. And I go, this is something that is learned from real life. Come on. So look at this shit. I can pull on these guys. They should be since I put a little tension on this, that should be inching towards me, and they should be coming in here. But they get stuck. They need to fix that. I'm gonna call that a fucking glitch too, because those things should just like if you take it anything else, if you put a little tension on, like they'll just slide over until. But for some reason, and there's no way they should be getting hooked on that. They should be just sliding up. There's only one way they can go. They should be sliding off of that, and they don't. Um, but I told him, I go, if you got a terrorist hiding in amongst civilians, I go, that becomes a valid target. Um, it's not like is well, and maybe they've done this. I don't know, and if it is, it's kind of a war crime. But again, when you look at the fact that they have been for decades constantly under terrorist attack, I think that should be like an extenuating circumstance. That should get them some slack cut. And I think there's a lot of people. I kind of reached out to the Democrats and asked them to talk to POTUS and let them know, you got to do something. You got to, because basically they're saying that there's Arab Americans that they're losing the support of them for the Democrats. Well, yeah, they're losing support because these people are fucking idiots. I mean, there's just no way to put it. I don't care who they are. Now they might not be idiots. They might be a little traumatized or whatever. Come on, you fucking piece of shit. And I threw that up. He actually didn't say too much. I thought it was him, and I was wrong. And I caught it before I posted it. So I was going to put him on blast. But there was some Dr. L terrorist that responded to my comment. He's like, Israel or something like that. They've been an evil empire. They've been doing war crimes since 48, blah, blah, blah. And I copied his and I put him on blast. And I'm like, no, they really haven't. And and the other thing is, I made a comment about when I was talking about this was, you know, the only thing you could maybe accuse Israel of war crimes is the settlements where they're taking land from the Palestinians. And I said, here's the thing you got to understand. Again, you got to know the history. I go, when a Jewish land, and it was theirs, was given back to them after World War II, and it was taken away from squatters, and it was given back to them. Uh, they sat there, and they were there for a bit. It was more than a year, less than 20. But I want to say this happened in the 60s, maybe late 50s, but I'm not absolutely sure of the dates. They had what's known as the 6 Day War, where pretty much the Arab countries got together and tried to finish what Hitler had started. They they wanted to kill the Jews. And the Jews, I think with our help, they kicked the shit out of them. They took a whole bunch of land, and then they held it for a while. It wasn't like they gave it back the next day, but they held it for a while, and they were constantly under attack, kind of like they are now. And it was worse because they didn't have the Iron Dome. So that's another thing that you should understand. They're under so much attack. They had the ingenuity to create a working rocket defense system before we did, because they needed it. Necessity is the mother of invention. And the at a certain point, they decided to give that land back, and they gave that land back to the Arabs under the condition that they would have peace finally. And I think anybody that pays attention to the news and the history for the last 60, 70 years since they gave that land back, that promise was not kept. They kept the promise. They gave the land back. I think they should be well within their right to take the land back, at least what Palestine has. And I go, and this is the thing. I go, if you want to sit there and hold them for war crimes for the thing, if you had a neighbor that would come over and rape your family, firebomb you, shoot rockets at you, throw grenades at you, try and kill you or kill anybody that was in that, most people would be okay if you went in and took care of shit. most people would be okay if the government came in and relocated them to jail, you know. And I know it's not everyone, and I this is probably where I'm gonna end it because I think I do need to go feed the cats. Yeah, it's after 4. Um, this has been done off and on for at least 20 years now. They've compared. I think the newsroom on HBO when I back in the day I watched. I watched again recently. Somebody I was able to. It was nice enough. I was able to watch it recently again. But I saw it when it came out, 10, 15 years ago, I think. Might even before I went down to Indiana. And they compared your Muslim terrorist groups like Al Qaeda, and they called Al Qaeda out on the show. But people were comparing these Muslim terrorist groups, and in some cases the countries, with the Tea Party and the Freedom Caucus, and now you can compare it to MAGA. And I shared with that guy, hey, here's when they were comparing, Muslim extremists with right wing extremists. They're not moved by new facts. They're not moved by facts. They want to control a woman's body. They want to control women. Narrow view of their religion. Narrow, not widely accepted view of, and the list goes on. You can make like about 8 or 10 things, and they're basically they want a theocracy. That's another thing, and like you can look at this, and it's like, yeah, this is true of your terrorist groups, and this is true of the Republican Party. There's just no way to get around it, and that's when he called them the American Taliban. I've heard Y'all Qaeda and other nicknames for them. But one guy responded to the stuff I had put up first. Oh, so you're saying that the Republican Nazis should be held responsible for MAGA? And I think he thought I was going to back off, and I kind of told him, I go, yeah, that's kind of exactly what I'm saying. And I pointed out, that you've got many, many similarities between not even just the MAGA, but the Republican Party at large. Not all of them, but a lot of them, and it was there before MAGA was there. A lot of people want to blame Trump. No, that shit was already there. He just dialed it up to 11. He turned it from like a 4 to an 11 on a scale of 1 to 10. But they they I told him, I go, yeah, I go, that's exactly what I'm getting at. I go, if law enforcement and the courts do not take care of the GOP, and this isn't politics, this is facts. If they don't, if the law enforcement doesn't take care of them, if the courts don't take care of them, if our society, if our government does not take care of the ones that are on the Supreme Court, if it doesn't take care of the ones that are in the lower court, if it doesn't take care of the ones that are in state and federal government office like Congress, state legislatures, if it doesn't take care of the ones that are actually in law enforcement now, if it doesn't take care of the ones that are in the military now, I told him, I go, we could be where Israel is in 40 to 70 years. Easy. I go, these people, they keep talking about leaving the Union, like they did before the Civil War. They keep talking about, well, we're just going to leave. We'll go start our own country. And I told them, I go, here's the thing with that. I go, it's going to be messy. But I go, if they do actually secede, and really the thing is, you'd have like the Southern Bank, and you'd have the fucking Appalachian Strip, and it would be a lot like Hamas. You'd have little patches of it here and there. And I go, the minute they do that, I go, within 2 or 3 days, the Mexican drug cartels are going to take out Texas. A couple days after they secede, the drug cartels will have taken over Texas. They will be teabagging Governor Abbott in his fucking. They'll flip his ass on the ground and be dropping their nutsacks in his mouth. On videos that they'd be putting up all over the place. They'd be making the news and, hey, how you like this, Abbott? And Some of the other southern states that are on the border would probably, maybe not as much as Texas, but they would suffer. And I go, the hardest part of them leaving would be getting rid of the drug cartels afterwards. Because I go, yeah, they got the military, they know how to shoot a weapon. Unless they're that Rhodes guy, he shot himself in the eye. And then you got some of the ones that were trying to protect the Marine recruiting stations like 10, 15 years. One of them was showing his buddy his gun and dropped his gun and it fired, discharged. But as soon as the ammo ran out, they'd be fucked. They'd have some missiles. They'd be blowing shit up. That's for sure. They would be like the fucking terrorists that were destroying the national treasures in Iraq when we invaded in the second Gulf War. They had national, just like they did to the government when they invaded Congress. They were taking shit on the floor, wiping the shit on the walls, stealing stuff, destroying shit. Those right wing terrorists that took over that federal wildlife preserve, they were out there fucking digging like piss trenches in like sacred Indian burial sites or whatever. And again, you can compare it. There's really no difference between Hamas and the Palestinians and MAGA, the Freedom Caucus, the Tea Partiers, and the Republican Party. It's the same dynamic. It's just over here. They have jobs and they know how to wipe their ass. That's the only really difference. With Hamas, they're a little better off than what we are. But no, I could honestly see that in 40 to 70 years, and I'm wondering. I haven't gotten back on. I haven't been near my phone since I got up around lunchtime. But I'm just wondering. Again, we need people to wake up. We really do. And I'm not trying to be mean to anybody, but if you are one of these people, I don't care if you're left or right. I don't care if you're a man or a woman. I don't even care if you're Palestinian, Iranian, etc. If we don't get the majority of the world to understand that Israel is the victim, 100%, no excuses, no bullshit. Israel is the victim. Well, yeah, but no. Go back to rule one. Israel is the victim. This doesn't get better until we get Hamas, the Palestinians, the Arab nations to understand rule number one. Israel is the victim. We need everybody that attacked Palestine or Israel to be either arrested and jailed or arrested and executed. It's that simple. They have to be taken out. Just like the Republican Party, we need to get the people in that region to understand right from wrong and stop their terroristic bullshit. Or this ain't going to get any better. And and the thing is, we need to support Israel, but I hope they can get it done because we got our own mess to clean up over here. I'm gonna work on feeding the cats. I hope everybody has a great day. Today wasn't all that bad for me. It had its moments, but wasn't all that bad. Peace out, and I hope everybody has a good day.